Hi there, welcome to Funding by Alex. Today I would like to talk to you about the Employee Stock Options Pool, or ESOP. We start with the what and the why of an ESOP. So, what is an ESOP? It's basically a pool of shares meant for the employees, so set aside by the company, or a pool that the company creates specifically for the employees from the shares that are available. It can also be that they are buying shares for this specific purpose. If it's, let's say, a publicly listed company, it can be like that. The reason why companies do this is because they want to attract and retain talent. So, why would you want to work with the company? For the salary, but stock options could be a very interesting future benefit. So, if you say, "Oh, I'm joining a company, they can't pay me as much as I would like to, but when I work with the company, I can actually help the company become worth more," meaning if they pay me in shares, I'm actually investing in myself. Retaining talent also is one of the things. So you have usually with startups when they have very valuable people, like the fight for talent is very intense in some industries. Then they want to really offer something extra, a sweetener on top of like a good salary for retaining talent. So the ESOP is normally like that to keep people in the company. So let's say, okay, it's not like today I'm getting the shares and tomorrow I can go somewhere else and I still have shares in the company. No, it's vesting periods exist for that. So vesting periods normally are times which it takes to actually, yeah, have access to the shares when the shares really become yours. So before it's maybe on paper in a contract, but that's it. What I really want to stress is like when you are like a starting company, when value is actually close to zero or not much yet, so not overstating the value of it. So it can take a long time before something like this can become real in essence. So like the difference between planned ESOPs and real ESOPs, and in the end, if a company doesn't have this liquidity event where they are actually becoming worth something, yeah, then it's actually maybe wrong to overstate the value of this. So if you say, "Oh, I'm paying you in shares instead of actually giving you a good salary," it has to be worth something. It's something I've been on the receiving end of myself, where people are offering shares rather than payment for my services, which is very nice. But yeah, in the end, it's very relative because it maybe takes a long time before something like that is worth anything. So let's go methodically down the list. So how is it structured in practice? So the company sets up an ESOP trust. So they actually create a trust which has individual accounts for every single employee. Then the company, depending on the agreement with the employee, so some employees with a higher salary might get more shares, or there might be some sort of provision that instead of salary they get those shares basically. Company pays in or buys shares for employees, so they might have existing shares they are paying in, or they are buying shares back from the market to put into this ESOP. So it's actually a cash provision. Then you have allocation per employee account. So every employee has an account in that trust and gets access to the shares. And this is reflected in an annual account statement. So if you are doing this, basically you have an annual statement where you say, okay, this is currently the worth of your ESOP, and this is as much as it's vested, this is unvested, not yet vested. Then you have something called cliff versus graded. So there are two types typically of ESOP. So cliff means that after a certain period of time, so like 100% of all the shares are vested, so meaning it becomes yours. And graded means like, okay, for every year that you work with the company, or maybe you get 20% of the promised amount you will vest. So that is a graded approach. Then once you retire, as an employee retire or you leave the company, so the vested shares will be sold. So sold back to the company usually. If it's a public company, of course, you can sell it on the open market. There are various ways of doing this. You can also sell some of the shares to outsiders, obviously. But I mean, for private companies, normally the rules are that all the other shareholders have to agree that you sell to an outsider before you can do that. There is a repurchase obligation, therefore, by private companies. So if you are not a publicly traded company, you have to buy back the shares of your employees. So as soon as someone retires or leaves the company, then the vested shares are bought back by the company. Then also very typical is diversification, right? So this is for people who are maybe 10, 15 years, maybe 20 years with the company. So they have a right to finally enjoy, part of those gains and sell the shares and invest in other assets in essence. So then you have cash or share distributions upon exit for a vested share. So in essence, that it means that you can choose if you are, or the company can choose together with you whether they want to just pay you out in cash. So, oh, this is the share allocation. This is what it's worth, and therefore we pay you in cash, rather than distribute shares. Now, it can also be shares, and then you can always choose to hold on to those shares or sell them to the company, back to the company for a cash disbursement. So, in the end, this is one of the choices that you need to make as a company. How do you want to structure this? And it's best to plan ahead for that. And as an employee, of course, it's very good to know that your interests are protected. One of the things that is very, very important to remember as well is that there are tax benefits for both the employee and the company. So employees only are taxed when there is a disbursement, so when there really is a distribution of the shares, so meaning that you get cash for it. And the company, normally for these investments that they make in an ESOP trust, they also can have some certain tax benefits, so deduct certain costs basically from their taxable income. So this is actually a very interesting method for companies to attract and retain talent and reward their employees with something that is, the carrot, for the future, where they are saying, rather than having a high salary, which is okay, I have every month I get this much. Let's see what else is there, but they are motivated by working for their own company. I would also say, rather than I drop everything from my hands at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, when it's time to go home, I actually put in the extra effort because it's my company as well, and I own shares in the company. Sense of ownership, I think that is probably the best thing. In practice, of course, the allocation of shares is so small that sense of ownership, it requires a little bit more. You need to be a founder with a significant share total, basically, to have that sense of ownership probably, but this at least helps for people to think twice whether, okay, I'm actually doing things in the interest or against the interest of the company. So is it their company as well? So usually these ESOP pools are not so big, maybe 5%, maybe 10% of the total shares. That is maybe the maximum I've seen so far with regards to ESOPs. There are, of course, a lot of fluctuations there when new investors come in, and the share pool becomes bigger. So new shares are created, basically, or these new shares are issued. Therefore, the ESOP also gets diluted to some extent. So this is something you can also contractually safeguard against, obviously. So this is one of the most interesting parts of the startup world, where a lot of people who actually would like to work in startups say, hey, I'm also getting shares in the company, which is a very nice enticement for joining a startup, I guess. And for startups, of course, like I said, to attract talent without constantly having to pay top dollar for everybody in cash. So you can also do it in shares. It's a gamble for both, because in the end, if the company doesn't make it, that's the thing with startups. The company doesn't make it, then nobody has anything. I've been on the receiving end of several of these ESOP plans where in the end, I still own shares in several companies, but whether it's worth anything, because the companies are either dormant or don't exist anymore. The startups that didn't make it. But that's also the thing where, as a startup advisory shares are also type of payment for advisors like myself, consultants like myself, don't always get paid in cash only. We also take shares, equity, basically, in the company sometimes, which, like I said, it has a plus minus. It's a bit of a gamble. That's why also I started the statement with, okay, don't overstate the value, because, it's all very nice on paper, but in the end, it's just paper. It doesn't mean anything yet until the company becomes worth something, which you know, you can be a part of if you are an employee and you want to add value to the company. Thank you for watching. I also run an advisory business, Golden Dragon Capital, which is a division of PT Kaya Abadi's Sejahtera. We're a brand of that company. I would like to invite everybody, if you have more questions for me about ESOPs or need any help with your startup with regards to attracting investors to your startup, then please do contact me, alex@goldendragoncapital.co. Thank you very much, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Please don't forget to like and subscribe.